Hey folks, so as of recording this video, the Evergreen is afloat. And no, that's not some kind of special code for its Cheesecake Day in the Maritimes. The Evergreen is a massive container ship that, and I'm sure you've heard this story, but it was stuck in the Suez Canal. It got wedged into the Suez Canal sideways. Anyway, it's free, it's floating on its own, and my understanding is it is beginning to make its way. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because since it happened last week, I've noticed in the media sort of a continuous cycle of continuous bombardment of being told that prices are going up. We should get ready because prices are going up. See, on either side of the Evergreen, outside of the Suez Canal, there were some 300 plus ships waiting to make it through. Those ships carrying those goods, we're going to run out of the things that we need, and supply is going to go down. Supply goes down, demand stays high, going to have to pay extra prices, going to have to pay higher prices. It's continuous. I mean, it just seemed like that was the thing they were trying to drum into my head. Now, it could be that maybe I'm sensitive to that and I noticed it more. I'll happily acknowledge that. But the stories were still there. Container ships are stuck. They're not making their way to you. Supplies of our goods and services, the supplies of the things that we need, they're diminishing. Demand stays staying high. Expect to pay more when you go to the cash register. But in our consumerist society, for all that it is, there are two things that we are told. Two things we are told in many different ways that we are asked to believe. The first is that we need more than we actually do. That our survival, our existence is dependent on products that we don't actually need. The second is that those products and those services that we have been told we need, that we have been convinced that we need, that we now believe with all of our heart that we need, that those things are in short supply. They are in high demand and they are in short supply. And we need to be prepared to pay more for them. When this ship got itself wedged in there, all of a sudden I noticed stories telling me demand was going to stay high and supply was going to plummet. Be ready for it to impact your wallet. Now, there's lots we can say about this. There's a ton that we can say about this. There's all kinds of influences, there's all kinds of motivations, there's all kinds of manipulations that we can talk about in this. But for today, I want to talk about my place in this equation. My place as a consumer in this equation. Because despite the fact that somebody can tell me demand is high and supply is low, ultimately, it's up to me of whether or not I'm going to pay the price for that product they've convinced me that I need. I stumbled across a quote this week in my daily Stoic book. Thanks very much, Ryan Holiday. It's from Epictetus. What he says is, freedom isn't secured by filling up your heart's desire, but by removing your desire. Ryan goes on to expand that our pain and suffering in this world comes from our desire for things external to ourselves. And that if we can remove our desire for those things that are external to ourselves and focus on the things that we actually need, that there's a lot less suffering in life. Jesus said very, very similar things. I mean, a lot of Jesus' teachings very much lean towards the idea of detaching ourselves from worldly valuables, worldly goods, worldly rewards, treasures here on earth. He called us to detach ourselves from this world in order to truly experience the spiritual world, in order to truly experience life in this world. So as I stumbled across that quote, as I read that particular day's passage from the Daily Stoic, I began asking myself, so what is it in one of those containers, on one of those container ships, that I absolutely need to have? What is it in one of those containers, on one of those 300 plus ships that are floating around out there, that if I don't get it, my existence will cease? I will cease to be. I will no longer be within this physical realm. Could be one of those containers on one of those cargo ships does have something that I absolutely, desperately, truly need for my survival. But I doubt it. I've bought into the lie. I've bought into at least one of those things that they tell us. I've bought into the idea that I need something that I don't truly need. And I want to shed myself of that lie, of that burden, of that baggage. I want to shed myself of that myth that I need something out there that maybe it'll make my life more comfortable, maybe it'll make me feel good about something, maybe it'll give me a joy for a few minutes or a few days or a few weeks. But that doesn't mean I actually need it. What would it be like if our lives were based on our actual needs instead of what somebody told us we need? What would it be like if we started giving up our desire for the things that we want? Focused, truly focused on just getting the things we actually need. I'm glad they got the cargo ship free. I'm glad that traffic is going to start moving again. I'm glad that the goods and materials that are on those ships are going to get to where they need to be. But this little news story from the Suez Canal really has me thinking. Which one of those cargo ships held a container that had stuff in it that I actually need, that I need to be prepared by the media to pay more for? Maybe one of them does, but I doubt it. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you. May you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that you will find your joy, as Ryan Holiday mentions in his book, not in your quest for getting everything you want, but in your realization that you want everything you have. Amen.